Is there a head coaching crisis in college football? Let's talk about it. After week one, looking at the head coaching performances in college football, it seems like the upper tier is almost gone. With Nick Saban being gone last year, obviously you have Georgia and Kirby Smart. Other than that, questionable. You look at Dabo in that kickoff game. I think there's a quote he had. I'll pull it up. That said, "You play a team like Georgia, you get exposed."
Yeah.
Right? And I mean,
Yep.
Clemson's not a second-rate team by any means, or not in the past. They haven't been. They might be heading in that direction with his inability to use the transfer portal. But it's just crazy to be thinking about. Okay, so the elite coaches in college football, right? I mean, there was some pretty bad performances when it comes to guys that you would think would be in that tier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were talking about a lot of guys that are younger taking that step to cement themselves in that elite category, like Dan Lanning, Marcus Freeman was there. These young guys, Ryan Day, we can even lump him in there. But DeBoer, definitely. We just haven't seen it, at least against like marquee competition, given week one is over. But Notre Dame won. They didn't look incredible against Texas A&M, but like winning on the road is good. But then you got like Lanning, really really lackluster performance against was it Idaho at home?
It was Idaho.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was Idaho.
Yeah,
10-point win, I think.
Yep.
Or something like that.
Something like that. I think it was 24-14. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Not pretty.
And the stats really, like, looking at least Dylan Gabriel's stat line, it looked like it should have been good for a lot more than 24 points because he threw for like 300 plus yards and a couple touchdowns. It makes no sense.
I'll have to grind the tape. I mean, it might have been a couple of coaching decisions. We know that Lanning likes to go forward on fourth. He likes to make questionable calls at times that can kind of set him back. We saw that last year in the regular season against Washington. Ended up costing them the game. But I think it's an interesting point that, there's these young and up and coming coaches who don't really have that experience, but are good coaches for the most part, like Dan Lanning, Marcus Freeman especially. But when you see the guys that have been around for a second, I mean, looking at the guys that first pop into my head in performances this past weekend, I mean, you have Dabo Swinney, Brian Kelly, guys like that. It's just like, I don't know, man. And then you have Brian Kelly throwing Nussmeier under the bus, saying, our quarterback got outplayed out there. It's just not a good look, and it's baffling to me how quickly this has changed in college football. Kind of the landscape of head coaching, especially in this day and age, where you need somebody really good to compete against Kirby Smart.
Yeah,
I think I understand kind of where Brian Kelly was coming from. Maybe he was trying to light a fire under his team because, I mean, and this is the thing. There's no reason to throw anybody under the bus or say anything along those lines. Like, at the end of the day, you're the head coach.
Yeah.
The buck is supposed to stop with you. Like, if you really think your quarterback was playing that poorly, you have a backup. And at the end of the day, there's no need for that. Like, I don't understand. Like, I understand, like, quotes get taken out of context all the time. But even if you did say that, I don't care what the context is. If I'm the quarterback, I don't know how we have like a non-toxic relationship between coach and player.
And
because,
it's not
you're embarrassing me in front of the national media.
Yeah. And it's not even like this was like a bowl game loss.
Yeah.
This is week
Game
one.
Yeah.
You have to come back tomorrow and grind the tape with this guy. Like it's not like you don't have to see him.
Yeah. Yeah. This is your quarterback that set a bowl record for passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's a good quarterback.
Yeah, he is. And mind you, he didn't have a bad performance. I mean, he was throwing it when he was allowed, right? And I just think the funny thing about Brian Kelly is I feel like he has the tendency to do this. I feel like he's not very well media trained, even though he's been talking to the media for however many years now, a long time, decades even. It reminds me of that quote last year, a couple years ago, where he was trying to like tongue in cheek say, "Oh, I think our whole team should be executed," but it came across entirely dry and like he was dead ass serious. It kind of reminds me of that. And to your point, Drew, I don't care if it's taken out of context. I don't think you should really even say that in any kind of context where you're like, "Oh, our guy got beat." I'm gonna put him in a better position to win then? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know. It just seems like a cop-out to me.
Yeah. Number one, it's a team sport. Number two, you're the coach. You're a grown man. And Nussmeier, I don't know how old Nussmeier is, but he's, 23 tops? He's not one of these ninth-year seniors.
Good player.
But, yeah, he is. He's a good player. He sat, he sat as a backup for a while. He waited his turn. Like, he doesn't deserve this.
No.
But yeah, going back to the main topic, I did find this list that ranks every Power 4 coach from worst to best. I'm not going to take us down the entire list because I believe that's almost 70 teams. But just to rattle, the top 10.
Shit, I got time.
But yeah, the top 10 is Kirby, and then this list has Ryan Day, and then Kyle Whittingham. Which I think is one of those guys, kind of head coach of Utah. I think he's flying under the radar. He is a good coach. He's the key. He's the epitome of consistency.
Definitely.
I was going to say the same thing. He's very consistent. Utah is always around. So I like that.
I like that. I mean, Ryan Day. I think we all know my opinions on Ryan Day. He's born on third. Now he's halfway back to first. But to be fair, like what we're comparing him to is winning a national championship. So I mean, he's in the playoffs every year. So he's doing something, but it's hard to win the big one. And I think that's hit the big thing holding him back right now. And then Dabo, we already touched on Dabo. And then DeBoer, whatever his name is. Kalen. We're on a first name basis now. But no, I mean, I think it's a little too soon to tell in his career at the Power 4 level. But he's
good start.
He's one of those rising stars that needs to fill that void. Dan Lanning, same thing. He's got some kinks he needs to work out. Norvell, they got at 7 here.
Still not sold. I mean, a lot of these guys is just, you think about it, what have they really done? And I'm not trying to knock anybody. I mean, there's some good coaches in college football for sure. But I think the Aflac trivia question during the kickoff was how many active head coaches have won a national championship, and we're down to 3. Kirby, Dabo, and Mac Brown.
That's one of them is Mac.
And one of them is Mac Brown.
The only reason there's 3 is because Mac Brown is 95 and he's still coaching football.
Yep, that's the only reason. So a lot of these guys have a lot to prove. And when you're on the level that Kirby is right now, firing on all cylinders, just completely prepared top to bottom. It doesn't matter if you have injuries or whatever. You're ready to go. It's just there's such a noticeable gap. And I think at some point, others will start to catch up. Thinking about the younger guys like we were talking about, Marcus Freeman, Dan Lanning potentially. Will ascend to that, closer to that tier. But as of right now, I mean, with the list that you were saying, Drew, I mean, it's Kirby, Gap, Big Gap, Ryan Day, Kyle Whittingham, so on and so forth. I mean, Ryan Day. What has Ryan Day really done so far?
He's
not a bad
train
coach,
on the tracks, I guess.
He has kept it on the tracks, but he has not excelled at any one thing.
It's wasted talent. That's what he's done.
I mean, at least looking at Norvell, at least not a lot of coaches would have been able to continue going undefeated after what happened to your starting quarterback. So I'll give him the nod there.
Tough spot.
However, the games at the end of the season that he played, he probably could have sat. Oh my God. Someone help me.
Jordan Travis.
Thank you.
Yep.
The only thing I could think of was Travis Hunter. I knew there was a Travis in there. I'm like, no, that's not right.
I got you.
Appreciate that. But he probably could have sat Jordan Travis last year for those last couple of games and been completely fine. And then the other guys on this list are Gundy. I mean, no offense to Gundy. I like Gundy. I like Oklahoma State, but he's been there forever. I'm pretty sure he has a lifetime contract. Oklahoma State loves him, but
they've never
obviously. He's not up here.
I mean, a lot of these guys feel like the status quo. They're kind of okay with kind of like a James Franklin vibe. We're not, and the thing is, you have an upside.
That's the next guy on this list.
Look, I mean, the thing is like if your program is okay with consistently winning between, call it 8 and 10 games a season and having that, then you're golden, right?
Yeah.
But there's none of these guys like Saban or Kirby. I feel like where you are just absolutely hungry for one every year. And not to say that people don't want to win national championships, but I don't know, it's just so noticeable the difference between how they approach the game and just things they do week in and week out. And I don't know. It's very noticeable in the landscape of college football right now.
I got a question. How do we feel about Sark? He's kind of in between, been around for a while as a coordinator, but he's still pretty new in terms of being the head guy, at least at Texas. I know he had a stint at USC back, 5-10 years ago, something like that. How do we feel?
I feel like this year is huge for him.
Yeah.
Being able to not 100% even replicate the success of last season, making it to the semifinals, but not falling off. I mean, a great feat last year. They did lose some talent.
Yeah.
Brought in some talent, but it's the thing of being consistent, not only consistent, but consistently really, you're going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think if he makes the playoffs again this year, he is ascending pretty quickly to that level.
Yep. Yeah. Like I think, like I don't think this is one of those things where you always need to be on an upward trajectory.
No, not always.
Because I think that a lot of getting you to this upper tier of head coachedness, I think a lot of it is gradually increasing your ceiling while more quickly increasing your floor.
Yeah.
Because like I think one of the coaches we haven't talked about yet is Lane Kiffin. Right. Like I feel like their ceiling has gradually grown from 8 to 11 wins over the past couple of years that he's been there. And then the floor has, if not, I think has been kind of outpacing the ceiling a little bit. So now I think that they're anywhere between a 9 and 11 win team at a minimum. I think Sark is in the right direction with that. I mean, his third full year?
I believe so. Last year was that breakthrough year.
Yeah. So I think if he can stay making the playoffs, at least winning a playoff game, I think he's heading in the right direction. I think he's one of those young guys that doesn't need to, but is on his way to filling that void.
Just sustain that success. That's
exactly
what you need to see. Okay.
Early in your career, I think you need to sustain the success. Not early, but early in the career you need to ascend, and then about the 3 to 5 year range is when we need to see some continuity.
Like what we saw with Kirby, like obviously made the national championship in 17, 18, 19, 20, it was
18, 19, 20, except for 20,
20 was weird circumstances. I'm not counting that.
Yeah. We're in the conference championship game. We might not be winning the conference championship game, but we're in it. In a new 12-team format, we would be in the playoffs every year. So I think as a head coach, if you're already at a blue chip program, that's your goal, especially with the 12-team. Like, you make the playoffs. I don't care how you do it, just make the playoffs.
I like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my take.
I agree.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's just, I feel like a lot of these guys are more focused on the floor, which is fine at first. I feel like your first priority should be to sustain yourself, raise that floor a little bit. But I think the big thing is seeing that jump, getting over the hump, whether that's making a conference championship, winning a conference championship, making the playoff, wherever your program's at, making that next step. And even if you don't win it all that year, the next year, kind of sustaining the same level or maybe a little less, and then making it back there. Because I feel like a lot of people have their 1 year where they make that push and they have a chance, and they just they kind of fizzle a little bit and then sustain their floor.
Yep.
Right.
I think it also depends on your start point too.
It's true.
Like if you're taking over, like Hugh Freeze taking over Auburn, right? Like the expectation is not to win 10 games.
Yeah.
The expectation is to maintain bowl eligibility and give Alabama hell at the end of the year. Like that's the expectation. And then if he can do that and become sustainable in that, and then you can work on winning 8 games, winning 9 games, winning 10 games. Hell, challenging for, I almost said the division, challenging for the conference. Like that's just I think the natural progression that you need to make, because you can't start winning overnight.
Yeah.
You can, but like that is extremely difficult, and I don't think that's sustainable circa TCU.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
I like it. That was a good conversation, fellas. I forgot I was driving this for a second. So, no, I think that was productive. I think we'll see as time goes on if somebody kind of separates themselves into that upper tier, but I just think Kirby, I mean, I might be a little biased. We might all be a little biased, but let us know if you have an opposing opinion, because I do feel like a lot of fans of other teams would agree with this take. I feel like it's very close to being correct, if it's not. But anyways, we'll see if anybody can get to that.
I'm just curious how Ohio State fans feel. Like, do they think Ryan Day is on the same level? If you do, please let us know. But like,
I would like to know if you think that, because I wholeheartedly disagree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a good team.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But you gotta go out and prove it. I mean,
for me, it's now or never for him. Honestly, they spent $20 million on a team.
They've got to
prove it. At least the Final Four
or the national championship.
At least. Because I feel like Ohio State wants to like have another natty. They haven't had one since 2014.
They're hungry, and those fans are very hungry. They're a very passionate fan base.
They're tired of losing to Michigan.
Yeah, they are tired of losing to Michigan. But I mean, if I'm them, I don't know very many Ohio State fans personally. If I'm them looking at their roster, it's natty or bust, in my opinion. I mean, and they're not going to fire Day if they don't make or win the natty. I'm not saying, but I just think that's the bar that they've set at this point. And if they don't get there, it's going to be a letdown, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that.
Deal.
All right, cool. Well, that's all we got. But let us know in the comments what you think about this. If there's anybody that kind of comes close to Kirby, or you think is in that tier with Kirby, let us know who you think it is and your thoughts on the whole head coaching situation in college football. If you like what you saw, please do consider subscribing and sticking around. We're talking ball all season, so let us know if there's anything you want to see. We do weekly we do some preview, dog of the week, whatever we feel like doing, talking about college football, just having fun with it. So please do stick around if you feel inclined to do so. We're also going to be streaming on YouTube. I believe that's the only platform we have as of right now. We might expand at some point, but YouTube, Wednesday's the goal. Maybe not this Wednesday, but just keep an eye out if you want to come in, hang out, talk ball. Last one was a lot of fun, so we hope to see some people back around on that. So yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.